fans don't like to give Tibbs a lot of credit, but when you take a look at, step back and take a look at this thing, this team is in the top 10 in offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating. One of 4 teams with a winning record on the road. They're 6th in the East right now after winning 37 games last year. Look to be making a prominent push for the playoffs. 4 games under 500 right now. I think the team is still bought in. They're still playing with a lot of energy. First in league and second chance points. Beasts on the boards when you look at what Julius and Mitch are doing. So you have to give Tibbs some credit there. You can't just say, well, we're doing that all in spite of Tibbs. They're playing under him. They are bought in, but there's still questions remain in terms of his in-game adjustments. Just last night against the Pacers, we saw these starters logging heavy minutes. I mean, Julius Randle from the opening tip of this game looked like he was already spent. You could see it in his face and his body language that he just didn't have anything. Jalen Brunson had 1 minute of rest in between the third and the fourth quarter, where he still came in with a lot of heroics. RJ Barrett coming back. He's logging 40 minutes. So there's still questions in terms of, will these guys have enough to make it to the finish line, make it in the playoffs, and have a positive impact? How is he doing in-game adjustments with the rotations? In that Bucks game, I didn't think Evan Fournier had any business playing in that fourth quarter. You have Hartenstein struggling mightily. Why isn't Jericho Sims getting minutes? He just seems to be so rigid in terms of his in-game adjustments, the substitution patterns, and just an overall game plan. I mean, I would go back to Ian and Steve, because in Tibbs' soundbite after that Bucks game, he had seemed to, absolve himself from any responsibility in terms of making the necessary adjustments defensively in the second half once the Bucks were making that charge, and especially from downtown.
Yeah, he's not going to show any, I guess, evidence of owning up to. I don't want to say owning up to, but he's not going to give you anything in a press conference in terms of, we should have done this. This player screwed this up. This guy screwed this up. He's not going to go there. I think we've learned that over time with Tom. Steve, I think you'd agree. But I thought last night was interesting because, he was being asked about the lead and the lead dissipating, and is it concerning? He kind of laughed. He said, yeah, it's concerning, but I'm concerned about winning. And so he got a little defensive in that moment. And I think from a big picture perspective, CP, you hit it. I mean, this team, I think it's 8th or 7th in net rating. Again, 6th in the East, 4 games over 500. Or at the midway point of this season. Young players are playing. Julius Randle, for the most part, is getting off the ball, moving the ball. He's running in transition. The defense is very, very strong. So he's, to me, checked off a lot of boxes that seem to be concerns among the fan base, at least the fans that I hear from, about Thibodeau. The rigidity is still there. Has he reached the ceiling? I think it's a fair question. It's a good question. I'm not sure how to answer it. I think, you see what happens the rest of this year. You see how the starters and how the players that are logging heavy minutes, how they look in March and April and into the play-in tournament or in the playoffs. If the Knicks get there, I think that's when you can answer that question. But look, they're winning. So from a bottom line perspective, I think you give Tom Thibodeau a lot of credit. He's been one of the best coaches for this franchise in some time, and he's established some principles here. And I think that's what you bring Tom Thibodeau in to do. Is he the guy to bring them to the next level? Well, they're not there yet. So in the here and now, he's the right guy for this job. Is he loved in the locker room? I wouldn't say universally loved, but that's always the case in the NBA. And if you're winning games, that stuff doesn't matter. If you're losing games, that stuff matters. Steve, your thoughts on Tibbs?
Well, first of all, what you just said, no coach is universally loved, but the important thing is, do you have the guys who you need? And he does. He has Jalen Brunson. Julius Randle, to me, has bought in completely. It was a strange year last year, but everything he says is supports everything Tom is doing. Tom gives him, asks him to do more minutes, and he's like, whatever you say, coach. To me, look, this criticism of Tom it's the strangest thing I've ever seen. This has been a dysfunctional franchise for decades, and he's a grown-up who came in and changed the culture. I tick off every criticism, and I'm like, they're like, he doesn't play the kids, but he does play the kids. we don't see the hours and hours of practice, but he knows better than we do, better than fans do, who's ready, who's performing in practice. And like when you see, like, for example, Cam Reddish, it's not just what you see in the game, it's the way he practices too. And on the opposite of that, it's somebody like Quentin Grimes, who has been handed a huge role, very quickly. Emmanuel Quickly, was a starter, or a huge contributor as a rookie. There's no hesitance to play kids here. It's just when they're ready and what they're doing on the court. And I think the progress you've seen in Quickly, in Grimes, and McBride, sort of, even Obi, I've seen great development with these young kids. And the biggest thing I look at this roster. This is not a championship roster. If you tell me somebody could milk more out of this team, I challenge you. Who's doing it? I think they're getting the most out of, and it takes playing them a lot of minutes. The guys who are contributing. I think there's not stars here. Jalen Brunson has had a great year, but how are you shaping him up to some of the stars of the league? I don't know. Maybe he's still an undersized guy who has trouble on defense. To me, Tom has really done a good job of maximizing. I don't think any of us predicted more than a 500 team here, and they're a little above that, and they're in the playoff picture. To me, fans should be like rejoicing that we're not talking about Victor Wembanyama yet.